What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nintendo Land, and it's been a while. I feel like I say this every time I make a video on this channel. It's been a while. Actually, it's been since November 1st since I posted the video, so over a month now. But like, I didn't want to post for no reason. Like, I want to start posting when there's reasons, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be like a daily or even a weekly thing. Like, whenever there's something that I really want to rant about and talk about, I'm going to put a video up on this channel. So, of course, you've been hearing the media and everybody talking and, you know, the whole controversy and everything surrounding Metroid Prime 4. So that's what I'm here to talk about. I posted multiple videos on my main channel. If you don't know, this is affiliated with Nintendo Land. This is my side channel where I just show you guys gameplay and I rant sometimes for over 30 minutes, over an hour. Who knows what it's going to be. Today, it's probably going to be a very long one because I have a lot to talk about. But this channel is pretty much unscripted. It's unedited. Everything is just me talking straight to you. Think of it as just a podcast with just me talking. It's just me ranting and giving you guys something to listen to if you're driving somewhere, going somewhere far. Maybe you're working out. Maybe you just got this going on in the background, or maybe you want to watch some of my gameplay that I'll be showing on screen. So it's a way for me to show you gameplay while also just talking. So keep that in mind. But I'm talking about Metroid Prime 4 today. Now, let me give you a little bit of a background about where I come from with the Metroid series, because I feel like this is always good to hear when someone's talking about a specific game, to see if they're coming from a fan side of things, a fanboy, like a serious fan, or just like a casual person. But I would consider myself a pretty big fan of Metroid. It's not my series of like, I would die for Metroid, but I have pretty much played every single game. Now, when I started playing Metroid, I started in the emulation side of things. I played, I believe my first Metroid experience was Fusion. I played the emulator of Fusion, the emulator of, well, I had a ROM of these games, and I played them on my, like, Android back in high school. But Fusion, Zero Mission, Super Metroid, and I played Metroid Prime Hunters, believe it or not, on, like, a DS emulator. So those are the games I played. Now, my first actual physical experience, meaning physical copy experience, was Metroid Other M, believe it or not, because it was just around the time, like I said, growing up in high school. I'm 27, so it was right around the time, you know, that was like the modern Metroid that was out at the time. So played Other M. I then got the trilogy on my Wii U, and I played through Primes 1 through 3. I went back to play any other games. So obviously, when games would come out from there on, I guess I would play those games that came out. So Samus Returns, I played on my 3DS. I bought that. Even Metroid Prime Federation Force, I bought and played that. A lot of that, believe it or not. And then of course Metroid Dread. I'm hoping I'm not missing any. I think that's the bulk. I never played Metroid Prime Pinball. I think I played like a little bit of it. It's deep in my memory somewhere, but I don't really think I did. Even Metroid, Metroid Blast from Nintendo Land I played. So, like, yeah, I played essentially every Metroid experience you can have. I'm probably missing something. I'm not a big fan of the two classics, the first one and then the second one on the Game Boy. But everyone else, every other one I've played for the most part. So, let's talk about it. I enjoy the series a lot. I really liked Other M. I know it has some issues with Samus's development and character and stuff like that. I really loved Other M. For the Prime games, I think my favorite Prime game is 3, and then 1, and then 2. 2 was just a little too confusing, a little too just chaotic at times. But yeah, like, I really love Fusion. Fusion was always up there. Dread was great when it came out. So was Samus Returns. I'm a fan, you know, and I played through the Prime games 3 times. My third playthrough was just recently. I played through Primes 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back in order to have a good feel, you know, jumping into Prime 4. So that way, you know, I went straight from 3 into 4. So what did I think of Prime 4? Now, you guys probably heard online. If you haven't yet, I was not too fond of the game. I ended up giving the game around a 7 out of 10. I was really just mixed on it, man. There were some elements that I liked, and it's funny because I feel like I'm flopped from most people's reviews. It's not exactly the complaints that people have been having. Instead, it's like my own feeling, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, because I'm not seeing, even diehard Metroid Prime fans are really liking this game for the most part. I don't know, it's split. You know, there's a bunch of people really loving it that are Prime fans, and I know a lot of Prime fan mutuals, content creators of mine, who also really love this game. It's a little confusing to me. So let me dive into what I'm talking about here. So let's talk about the gameplay. Let's just be straight up. Coming off of 1, 2, and 3, it was very evident that Prime 4 was not like those games. And it's strange to me that Prime fans try to argue that it is. And it makes me question if they played the first 3 games, because it is so vastly different. And I'm not talking just because it's linear, which it is. It's very linear. But it's the way that it's linear that makes it so different. Because Prime 3 is linear, because it separates the worlds in different planets. It's not one giant interconnected world like 1 and 2 were. It's, different planets that you would fly off to. But that self-contained world, there was about 4 separate worlds. Each world felt like a mini Metroid Prime experience, a mini Metroidvania experience in a way. No, now none of the Metroid Prime games are truly Metroidvania. They just make you feel that way. You still have to get items in an order or go to bosses in an order and stuff like that. But the way that the world's designed, it gives the illusion like it's a Metroidvania. But even Prime 3 had elements of that in its self-contained worlds. Each world had pretty much, you could go through different hallways, end up in an area that you're not supposed to be in yet, but at the same time, there was backtracking the past planets. You had to go back and figure out what to do, and it wasn't really, really hand-holdy. But yeah, I liked Prime 3. I liked the planet stuff. I liked the motion controls. I liked the boss battles. I love the world design with Skytown Elysia was one of my favorite worlds in Metroid history. But I really liked Prime 3, and its linearity didn't bother me that much. Where in Prime 4, it's not just the fact that it's linear, like meaning that you're going from point A to point B, with little exploration. It's the fact that you're not really doing anything in each of the worlds. Now, if each of the worlds were linear, like the game was still linear, but each of the worlds felt like, a mini Metroidvania world contained for each world, it'd be different. I don't know if I'm coming across or making sense, right? But like each world you go to feels like it's just the most mundane, like boring, straightforward task that you will do. And it's so not Metroid Prime feeling. Metroid Prime 1 through 3 had rooms where you would have to solve this elaborate puzzle, like this domino effect. You do this, and this would happen in the room, and then this would happen, and this would happen. And you had to go around the room really looking closely to everything, figuring out what you have to do. Prime 1 and 2 specifically has some really deep puzzles for some of the rooms that you have to figure out, whether it be using certain visors. Prime 2 specifically had crazy puzzles, I remember, especially with like Sky Sanctuary, where there was a lot of my favorite worlds are just skies, and I'm thinking about Sky Fortress or Sky Sanctuary, or is it Sky Sanctuary or Sky Fortress? One of them. You guys know what I'm talking about. The electrical place in the sky or whatever with the spider ball stuff. But yeah. Anyways, lots of these rooms had puzzles, and it was like you really had to figure out where to go next and what to do. Like, I remember being in that Sky Sanctuary area in Prime 2 for like 5-6 hours, just figuring out where to go and what to do. And there's like there's a charm in that. There's a charm in having to figure out what to do next and where to go, and have to actually think on your feet and figure out, what they want you to do. Take the abilities that they give you and figure out what you're supposed to do with them. I have not, in a single instance, had that in Prime 4. There hasn't been a single room, a single area where I didn't know what to do, or I even for a second had to stop and figure out where I was supposed to go. It was simple. Go through each door, go down the corridor, fight some enemies, go down the corridor, fight some enemies, go down the corridor, fight some enemies, hit a switch. Go back through the corridor, fight some enemies, go back to the corridor, fight some enemies, and you're back at the top, fight a boss. It just didn't feel like it had that Metroid Prime puzzle element to it. That charm of not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go. It didn't have that for me. And I found myself at the very beginning, I was one of the people that did kind of slowly fall off with this game, because in my opinion, the first area, which not Fury Green, that felt like just an entrance. That didn't even feel like a world, by the way. Fury Green felt like a completely wasted world, it was a beautiful jungle and stuff, and they didn't really have anything with it besides, once again, some corridors. You walk over a bridge, you talk to Miles, you fight a boss, it's over. I wish they'd kind of developed that world more. So it's really like 4 main worlds in this game. But the first main world, being Vault Forge, was peak. It wasn't still like the quality of past worlds that I've seen, but the stuff that it did was just like really unique, man. I loved getting Viola and going through the factory, turning the factory on and seeing all the robots come alive, and having 3 separate towers that you could drive to on the motorcycle was so cool. One dedicated to Viola missions, one dedicated to combat, and one dedicated to puzzles. Brilliant idea. Brilliant. I mean, and it was like the only one in the entire game that had some fun little puzzles. There was one puzzle where you had to control your psychic beam from one side of the room to the other in order to hit a switch to lift the levers for the one that you were standing on, and it was like, and then one you had to turn into a morph ball and let the arm pick you up and take you into the facility where it was building the Viola bikes, but you could only go into the one that was picking up wheels because your morph ball looks like a wheel. It was stuff like that. I was like, dude, this is awesome. And I really expected the game to continue on that high note, but it just didn't. In fact, the very next area we go to is Ice Belt, and it really fell off for me. Ice Belt was a struggle. I see a lot of people really liking Ice Belt online, and it just confuses me because I'm like, I think a lot of people are taking this isolation and this creepy, the aesthetic of Metroid and putting it above the gameplay, because the worlds are great when you look at them visually. They're beautiful. They tell some really cool side story with the characters. They have great lore and stuff that you can learn about them, and they do some unique things within them. But the problem is the gameplay in them just drags for me. And the first entire half of Ice Belt, you'll spend your time just scanning objects in the rooms. And this is normally something that you will do in Metroid Prime games, but it's never been a mandatory thing to progress. You never had to go throughout a world and scan everything until you find 5 keys. I'm not talking about the end of the game Collectathon thing, like that is always a thing, but scanning everything in a room, like you'll literally go through all these laboratories and scan everything. I don't know if I said it yet, but yeah, this is going to be some spoilers. I'm talking about the entirety of the game here. I'm ranting about the entirety of Metroid Prime 4. So hopefully, if I didn't say it, I'll put it at the very beginning. But anyways, continuing on. You'll go through all these little factory areas or all these little rooms and scan things, and just that's the puzzle. Scanning everything and that's the only part of the game that I actually got stuck on for a little bit, because I just forgot to scan something, or there was a little vial on the counter that I was supposed to scan and it gave me a access key. I just thought that was stupid. And it keeps repeating this thing that they did in Vault Forge, which was cool the first time, but not the next 2 times, where you go down to the bottom, there's no enemies really, but then as soon as you turn on the breaker or whatever, the whole facility turns on, and then all the enemies come to life. You know what I mean? It's just okay, sure. You know what? It's still kind of cool in this one because it's a facility of, the Lemorne that's transformed into these grievers, and now they're awake and stuff. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Sure, we'll do it again. But they do it again in Flarepool, and it's just the facility is down. You go turn on a generator or turn off a generator, and then you come back, and it just... Yeah, and I mean, you just look at some of these maps, dude. They are so unbelievably straight. They are just straight paths. It's like Nintendo's got this addiction with straight paths since the Switch 2, with Mario Kart World, intermission tracks, and now these rooms in Metroid. It's just like, what are we doing? There's no real reason to backtrack anywhere or go anywhere. Most of the puzzles and exploration you're going to do is post-game stuff. That's when the game actually started getting a lot more fun for me, is going through post-game and trying to figure out how to get a specific item or something and looking for items. But yeah, we'll even go on, like I said, Flarepool was also the same thing. It was probably my least favorite one in the entire game. You spend 80% of the world just riding trams, getting off, hitting a switch, moving on. I mean, not even puzzles, dude. It's like, we need to activate this generator, and there's a giant hole in the generator. I wonder what we do. You jump in the generator as a morph ball and spin. It was just stuff that I was like, dude, what are we even thinking? These aren't even close to being puzzles. They could have at least had a couple of unique things that you had to do to start the generators, but I'm like, it's just jump in the generator and drop a bomb. I'm like, what is happening? This doesn't feel like Metroid Prime. And then the last world, being the mines, it was fine for what the game is trying to do. And that's the thing. I feel like I'm going to have to replay this game, but in the mindset of this isn't Prime 4. I got to replay this game thinking that this is just Metroid Beyond. A new thing. And because if I played in that mindset, I might enjoy it better. And that's the problem, I think. But the fourth world, I can see a lot of people having fun with, just because there's a lot of cinematic moments with the characters, and it kind of feels like a zombie shooter thing. It's kind of unique. but still, like I said, it just doesn't feel like Prime. It's just like big wall, send your trooper to go break the wall down. Big crack in the wall, use your super missile. Like there's puzzles, but they are so, I can't even call them puzzles. It's just quick problems, and then there's just a super easy, quick solution. There's no puzzles, really. It's not really puzzly. But yeah, I was pretty let down by the overall world design. I thought it was pretty average. Some worlds stood out more than others. Like I said, I think Vault Forge and the mines were some pretty good high points. But the other three, like Fury Green was nothing. Ice Belt felt empty and soulless, and Flare Pool just felt like a joke, complete joke. I don't know, but that's just really how I felt. I don't know. It bothered me, and yeah, I just kept thinking back to like, dude, I just played through Primes 1 through 3, and people online are telling me that this is just like Prime. I'm like, did we play different versions of Prime 1 through 3? I mean, I don't want to get into like digging through all the old Prime games, but I'm just thinking of some of the worlds and some of the stuff you had to do. Let's backtrack. Let's go to Prime 3, Skytown, Elysia. It'd be like if you got to Elysia and you just followed those zipline paths forward and never went to any extra room. You just kept going forward, and then you get to the end of the area. You hit a switch in order to awaken the whole factory, and then you backtrack all the way to the beginning and fight a boss. It would make that just so bland. And when you look at what you actually had to do in Skytown, it was so much better. You had to go throughout, like it was this giant puzzle where you're going from floating platform to floating platform, trying to figure out what you're supposed to do, finding the Aurora unit, and learning that you had to build a bomb, going to all these different locations in the world and trying to find all the bomb pieces, constructing the bomb with your ship, picking the bomb up, setting it into the chamber, riding it over the sea where you need to drop the bomb, having this really cool combat section, hot wiring your escape pods so that way you can jet out of there, you know what I mean, before the bomb drops. It's just like there was a whole little contained story and just an awesome gameplay thing that they were cooking up with Skytown. Let's go to Prime 2. Like I just talked about with Sky Sanctuary. You start at the bottom and, you're working your way towards the top and you're getting these different visors. You get this echo visor where, I think you also get like an x-ray visor or something where you can like see certain switches hidden behind doors and you use that to explore the area even more. You start getting higher and higher in the sanctuary and you fight like Dark Samus again. And then you get some new ability. You make your way back down. There's all these puzzles with these colored, panels that you got to flip around and switch around, and different colored like little energy circles that you had to like. I remember the one there was like a bunch of like, it was like a Dyson spear pretty much, or sphere I should say, not spear, Dyson sphere, and you had to hit all these like correct colors in the right order to get through. If you played Metroid Prime games before, you know what I'm talking about. So I might sound like I'm talking gibberish for people that haven't, but there was just so much more, like so many moments you had to stop and think instead of just going and doing. And, that's just a problem. It's just, there's no stopping and thinking. It's just going through the motions in Prime 4. I wasn't a big fan of the world design. Let's talk about combat. Combat is fine. I feel like the problem with combat is they relied way too heavily on the boost dodge. This has always been a thing. Every Prime game has had the boost dodge left and right. I think they just now added the forward and backward, though. But it's done a lot easier here. Sorry, I'm stuffy for some reason. I don't know why. I'm not sick, unless I'm getting sick. Unedited here. It's what you get on this channel. Yeah, the boost is cool, but it's just so overutilized to the point where they don't even use any other mechanics for battling. I was very, very shocked when I was watching the trailers for this game that they didn't show anything with like Samus's counter that she gets in Samus Returns and Metroid Dread. Really kind of upset by that. I was like, wouldn't it have been really cool if she had that really cool parry counter with her arm cannon? And maybe if you were playing motion controls, you could just like shoot your arm up to do it. Or there'd be a simple button press if you want to play button controls. But just like a parry that could like reflect certain missiles, but you had to be really precise with it. That way you had to time down your parries and stuff, or you can knock back an enemy. So that way it just adds an extra level to that combat, or maybe even some cool little cinematic scenes. If you parry a boss, it'll give you this really cool third person, animation like it does in the 2D games. That'd have been really cool. But yeah, there was just nothing like that. There was no combat change. Do something with the grapple more. The grapple I felt was underutilized and stuff. Like, this will lead me into the bosses. I see a lot of people praising the bosses, but then I ask you, did we not play through the other Prime games once again? I think you take away the puzzle elements. Once again, this game is just extremely lacking with puzzle stuff. But you take away the puzzle elements and you look at the boss on paper, they are pretty well designed. It's a pretty fun, engaging boss battle of just, dodging and shooting, but that's what it's all about. It's dodging and shooting. They don't utilize hardly any of your extra abilities that you gain in battle, which is strange. The very first boss, which is the giant plant, it utilizes the psychic beam. I'm like, okay, that was a cool concept. I wonder what they're going to do next. And then we get to Vault Forge, and it's just like, you have this really cool battle with the first Sylux encounter, or fake Sylux encounter, and it's just like, okay, that was really cool. That was a really good 1v1 fight. Like, oh, sweet, what's this boss going to be of this area? You get to the final boss, and it's just this floating orb. And you just shoot the panels off and shoot the nucleus in the center. And I'm like, that was pretty underwhelming. Like, wouldn't it have been cool if we got the grapple in that area and ripped off the panels and then started shooting it? But no, you're just shooting the panels, and I'm like, this is very reminiscent of, like, there's a boss from Prime 3 that was very similar, but I felt it had more uniqueness to it. It had, like, all these nanobite drones that would, like, form a giant body for it and stuff. You guys, once again, know what I'm talking about if you played it. Prime 3 has this giant robot boss, similar thing. I forgot the name of it. But even Metroid Prime Hunters has a giant orb boss. We've seen giant orb bosses 100 times. Even the final boss of Metroid Prime 2 has a segment, I think the first phase is where you're shooting through the shields of this giant orb pillar for Emperor Ing. So I'm like, this has been done before. This has definitely been done before. We've fought orbs floating circles. Like, this didn't really surprise me or do a lot to impress me, and a lot of the time you're just boosting out of the way at the last second. Boost, shoot, boost, shoot, boost, shoot. The very next boss, an Ice Belt, is initially the same thing. Like, it's a giant orb character, a giant crab this time. That's a big old spherical crab, and you shoot the weak point, dodge, shoot, dodge, shoot, dodge, shoot, dodge, shoot. The same thing over and over again. Once again, this is an area of the game where you also get the grapple. They didn't even utilize the grapple. Could you imagine if you had to, like, grapple off pieces of its shell or something? But no, it was just dodge, shoot. I'm just like, why are we not using elements that we're finding? Why are we not using things? You move into Flare Pool, the giant lava dragon. It was pretty cinematic, but it's once again just trying to have you aim precisely and shoot and dodge, shoot and dodge, shoot and dodge. It's a really cool boss battle, don't get me wrong, but man, I'm just like, why are we not utilizing the specific parts of our moveset? Now, you do, when you knock him down for the final blow, you have to shoot a beam, a psychic beam, and guide it into his mouth, into his intestines, which is super cool, by the way. I really, 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 really love that. But why couldn't that stuff be, implicated? I don't know, I'm trying to say, I'm so all over the place. Why couldn't they implicate that stuff more within the actual boss battles themselves? I would have loved to see more of Samus's abilities. Even when you fought, like, the Omega Griever, there's nothing besides, like, a couple morph ball bombs you'll use. It's just like, why? Why are we not using the grapple? Why are we not using the spider ball for anything? Why are we not using the grapple ball for anything, which is a new thing, which would have been really cool, or the boost ball for anything? It just feels like it's just some missed potential, missed opportunities. Something else, the beams. Why are we not using the beams? Like, why is there no bosses where you have to use a specific beam to do damage and then switch it to a different one or something? Like, those are really cool to me. Like, maybe you have to freeze it real quick or set it on fire and then switch your beam to something else. There was no, like, strategy or elements to the beams. It was just like they're there. And a lot of the time you're just going to take your, recent beam and spam charge attacks with it. Especially when you got the electric one at the end. I feel like that one was one I just used nonstop. And especially since you have so much ammo and there's so many ammo pickup, expansions, you're never going to run out of ammo. So yeah, I don't know. I felt like they could have done more with the beams, especially with the enemies and stuff. Like, even the very first Metroid Prime had specific space pirates that were color-coded that certain beams worked better against. And of course, the final boss against Metroid Prime and against Emperor Ing also had you using your specific elements. So it was really strange that we didn't have to use any of our elements to explore weak points and stuff like that. But yeah, the bosses were okay. I'll get into the ending and everything here soon, but I will say the 1v1 battles against Sylux were 100% the best 1v1 battles of the entire series. Metroid Prime, or fighting Dark Samus has never been that interesting for the most part. You know, it's an okay fight, but it's still, you know, not anything near what the Sylux boss fights had in this game. I really did enjoy them, especially the first one. The first one was really good. But I'm looking at, like, I have a tier list formed for my main channel of every single Metroid Prime boss that I'm ranking. And I just don't think any of the bosses in Prime 4 reach some of the heights of a lot of the other bosses that we've seen so far. I think there's like 6 that I can think of right now that are just still way better, in my opinion, than all the bosses in Prime 4. Quadraxis is still peak. You know, obviously Metroid Prime was amazing. Meta Ridley, peak. All the Ridley battles, honestly, peak. Emperor Ing was even better than any of the bosses. What's the I forgot the name of the giant whale that, you know, isn't a young, was it Chica? Chica, I think, that can transform into the dragonfly. That one was way more unique. The 3 worms from Prime 2, I forgot the name of those. Those were also really good. Thardis was a fun one. You had to use a visor to shoot the weak points. Just something as simple as that, using a visor to shoot a weak point. Something that could add some interest instead of just boosting and shooting blindly. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of other unique ones, and I just think they could have done a little bit more with the bosses, for sure. There's also a boss that you fight. Actually, you know what? Take it back. The lava boss is pretty good. I forgot you also fight at phase 1 on your motorcycle, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. They should have used a motorcycle for some more fights. There's only like 2 boss fights, I think, with the motorcycle. One in the desert against a giant like sandfish, which was pretty cool. But okay. So, as you can tell so far, it sounds like I'm really not liking this game. But let me tell you that I'm not going to say it got better, clearly. I just talked about everything. But the things that people really didn't like were not the problems that I was having. Like, I know a lot of people didn't like the desert. Let's talk about the desert. I like the desert. I have extreme OCD, so maybe that's why, where I just felt like I needed to hit all the crystals, and I never had to grind for them. I got all the crystals filled before the 4th dungeon. I ended up getting like 200% crystals filled for the extra concept art. So I didn't have a problem with that at all. And eventually you'll get like a little, you know, radar showing you where they are. I just wish there were more like outposts and more shrines. There's only 6 shrines. Really, really weird. You have 2 for 2 more element power-ups for each of your power-ups, which will give you 6 shrines. Each of your lasers will have 2 power-ups. Each of your beams, rather. But the shrines, yeah, they were cool, and a lot of them did have some puzzle elements to them. But there's only 6 of them in this huge desert. Only 6 of them. I was like, that's weird. If there were more of those, and maybe more of those like little Galactic Federation outpost crash sites, I probably would have liked the desert even more, but I didn't have a problem with the desert. It was inoffensive. Like it wasn't anything that bothered me. I liked traversing it. I scanned my amiibo just to get some music, which is just ridiculous, which, by the way, that is how it works. Once you get 100% completion of all the scans and everything in the game, it will give you new music tracks, but you can't really play the music tracks until you scan your amiibo to get the music box to play the song. So yes, you need the amiibo, which is ridiculous. Plus, the amiibo only gives you like 3 songs. It gives you the Viola song, it gives you the Vault Forge theme, and then the boss for Vault Forge. I only played the Vault Forge theme because it's one of the best themes in the entire series. So I was going through the desert nonstop listening to that theme, and it's stuck in my head, man. But no, I felt the desert was fine. I don't think it had no issues really with it at all. I had a lot of fun with it, believe it or not. I definitely think they need to tweak it and do some changes for the next game, but I felt like it was fine. Also, the Galactic Federation soldiers. I do not have a problem with them. I want them in the game. Like, I felt like they were fun. I had a couple chuckle moments. I liked some of the characters, and I felt some of the voice acting was iffy. The sniper had some weird deliveries. That's about it, honestly, just a sniper. That dude had some weird deliveries. But, yeah, the black guy, Duke, really good. The girl was pretty good. Miles was really good. I felt like he had some really good line deliveries. People are just too worried about him being quirky. I'm like, dude, grow up. Like, he's a quirky character. Who freaking cares? He doesn't ruin any experience. Like, he's in the game with you for no more than 15 to 20 minutes. It was completely overblown with the previews. He is not bad at all. He has some moments that are annoying, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of moments when you're in a desert where he'll be like, hey, you need to go here, and you already know where you need to go. You're like, duh, this game isn't hard. This game doesn't have any puzzle that makes you have to think for more than 3 seconds. Plus, you can ask for help on the menu pretty much whenever you want by just clicking open the map and pushing like the X button. So yeah, he always tells you where to go for the most part, and you know he'll ping it on your map. So whenever you open your map just to see where you are, it'll go through that animation of saying, "This is where you are. This is where you need to go. Beep 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 beep. This is where you need to go." And it gets annoying. I agree. But I've only had one real problem with the Federation, and that was at the very end of the game, and I'll talk about that when we get there. But no, I love them. I love their characters. I feel like they did what they needed to do. So yeah, no problem with the troopers and with the side characters either. So those were the main issues for a lot of people. My main issue was just the gameplay. My main issue was this did not play like a Metroid Prime game in my opinion. It didn't. I don't mind the hub world. I don't mind the ideas. I don't mind the separate worlds like they did. Like I said, I liked Prime 3. It's my favorite Prime game probably. Prime 3, then 1, then 2. So why didn't I like this? It's just because it didn't have that exploration factor. It didn't have that unique backtracking or figuring out where to go next. I even got stuck a couple times in Prime 3, you know, where I did not know what to do next and I had to explore and figure it out. I did not have that whatsoever with Prime 4, not even close. And I know some people are going to come in and say, well, you know, people don't like that. That's annoying. Then don't play Prime. It's just that simple. We shouldn't have to change a whole franchise to welcome new people to make it something that it's not. We shouldn't. You know, if you enjoy this game and you're not a fan of the other Prime games, cool. But it shouldn't be something that's changed in this. Like, this shouldn't be something we should expect for Prime 5. Prime 5 should go back to the original formula. You know, you shouldn't change a franchise that was constantly getting 9s out of 10s, constantly, to now getting low 8, almost a 7. So, yeah. But music was phenomenal. Don't really have an issue with that. There was some really good tracks. Sylux's theme is awesome. The main theme is awesome. Fury Green is awesome. Vault Forge theme is amazing. It has separate themes. Some other things when you turn on the generator and stuff, that's also amazing with like electric guitar thrown in there. Feels very primey. If anything feels like Prime in this entire game, is the music. The art direction is phenomenal. I love seeing the worlds off in the distance as you're traveling to them on Viola. All the worlds are beautifully crafted, beautifully designed. They look amazing. If they just didn't have these stupid layouts of just straight paths and hallways, it's a feast for the eyes. It is by far the best looking Nintendo game ever, hands down, no debate. Beautiful looking game. It runs flawlessly. I've only had a couple like moments of hiccup in the desert, but besides that, it runs flawlessly. What else do we need to talk about here? I feel like we covered I think we could probably move into the ending of the game. Yeah, let's move on. Actually, no, let's touch on a couple small things first. I talked about this in my my recap video on my main channel, but the map was a frustrating thing for me. Not just the map, but the buttons. I feel like I just kept pushing stuff I wasn't supposed to push. I wanted to call Viola. I kept forgetting that it's the start button for some reason. Why, to get on a motorcycle, is it the start button? Who designed that? Why? It's such a bad idea. I kept trying to pull up the map and kept pushing the wrong button. I kept pulling up the motorcycle, or I kept trying to get in a morph ball and I would press the visor and vice versa. I don't know why. It just felt like everything felt a little swapped in my brain. I know you can edit the controller and change things, and yeah, I get that. But I'm just saying, like, the controls were weird. Once again, inoffensive, not going to bother me too bad, but I'm just like, yeah, it bothered me. What really did bother me, though, like really, really bothered me, was the map. For some reason, my eyes were not seeing the map the way I was supposed to see it. It's this weird 3D diorama where it looked like I was looking at the map from a different angle. It was like a mind trick it was playing on me every time I opened the map. Because I'd be like, why can't I move the map? Why can't I see above the map? I'm trying to flip the map and it won't let me see above the map. And I was realizing that I was looking from the top point of view. But every time I open the map, it looks like I was looking from the bottom point of view up through the map instead of down to the map. I know a lot of people, I've read the comments, a lot of you said you had the same issue. Some of you said you even had it with the past primes. I've never had it with the first 3 primes. This is the first time I've ever had it, so I don't know if it's maybe the color of the map is what does it, because, you know, I guess all the old maps were pretty much, orange, as you were going through them. So this one was like a light baby blue, but yeah, it was truly like frustrating. I would have to open the map, sit there for like 10 seconds blinking, trying to get my eyes to adjust to what they wanted me to see. I just could not get it down, man. It was so frustrating. Not a fan of that map. I don't know what it is, but the fact that I've never had that issue with any video game before, or with any Prime game before, there's got to be the map's fault. Like, I'm going to blame the map for that one. They could have used a different color or designed it a little bit differently, because I can't believe they didn't have anybody in the entire Nintendo office have this issue and say, hey, maybe we should change this. But yeah, it messed with me pretty good. Backtracking in this game is kind of non-existent. Like I said, there's a couple times where you'll need to go back. The backtracking that you do is there, but by non-existent, I mean it's not interesting backtracking. It's, you got this new ability, you go back to this, like for instance, you'll get the morph ball, it's either I think it's the boost ball, and you're supposed to go back to Vault Forge and find where to use it. Because, you know, Miles is screaming at me the whole time, you should go back to Vault Forge. I'm going through Vault Forge. I'm like, what the heck do they want me to do with this thing? I'm looking through all the areas that I've already done. I'm like, yeah, I don't quite understand. And then I get back to the top and I realize there's just a desk. As soon as you walk into Vault Forge, there's a desk in the front. Big old desk with a boost ball generator. You're supposed to literally walk into Vault Forge, use your boost ball, and a big old desk in front of you, and leave. I was thinking way too hard about it, and I was like, wow, that's what you're supposed to do? I think it's like to get one of Samus's new suits or something. Or it's something. I forgot. It was like a suit upgrade to go into like lava areas or something like that. But yeah, you literally just walk into the front desk and leave. It's like you're going to reception. I couldn't believe that was the backtracking. And a lot of it is like that. You'll go back to a past area, use your ability for one room, leave. It's not like it's like you're using your ability, expanding a past world and going deeper in that past world, which is something that the other Prime games do. Could you imagine if I went back to Vault Forge and I used my boost ball and it opened up a whole new section of Vault Forge or something? That would have been awesome. It's just like once you finish a world, you pretty much are done with that world. The only time you're going to go back is just to get a specific item from a closet, and then you're going to leave. But yeah, I also hate the way they handle just the little side quest stuff. Like, you'll get a chip. Like, for instance, okay, you beat Vault Forge, and you're like, where do I go next? So you make your way to, like, I went to Ice Belt, which Miles tells you that you can go to any of the locations that you want. That's not true. There's a very specific order that you're supposed to go in. He gives you the illusion that you're supposed to. I go to Ice Belt, I go through all these loading screens and everything, and I get to the first room and find out I can't do anything here. So I go to Flare Pool. You can only go to like the first room. I get a fire chip. And I'm like, okay. And Miles is like, bring the fire chip back to me. We can give you a new beam. So I got to take that fire chip back across the desert. So I've already went to Ice Belt. Had to go from Ice Belt to Flare Pool. Now I got to go back to Fury Green. I go all the way back to Fury Green. Give him the chip. He gives me my new beam. I got to go all the way back to Ice Belt again to use that fire beam. And this happens the entire course of the game. Whenever you get a new chip, you have to drive all the way across the desert, go all the way to Fury Green, walk all the way back into the hallway to where he is, give him the chip, he gives you the new beam, and you got to go all the way back to the dungeon that you need to go to. That is just terrible. That is just terrible. I don't know why they couldn't just let Samus put the chip in her gun and just give her the beam. Like, do we really need Miles to do all this stuff for it? No, it's just ridiculous, dude. If I could have just went from Flare Pool back to Ice Belt, it would have been fine. But the fact that I have to travel and like there's no fast travel back to home base. If they at least had a warp to home base, that would have been so much better. You have this really smart scientist guy. He couldn't have developed some type of warp technology to warp you back to at least just home base. I would have really loved some type of thing like Breath of the Wild has, that medallion where you could just place anywhere and you can warp back to that area. It's something that even Hollow Knight has, and it's just something that's just super basic, so that way we don't have to travel like crazy, because these load screens, man, like to get to Ice Belt, for instance, you will have a load screen to get into the facility, where you're like going through a hallway or something. Or no, I think it's you go into the facility, then there's a load screen to go up an elevator, and then there's a load screen to go on a tram. You'll go up on an elevator and then onto a tram. Why do they have to do both of them? Like, double load screens is freaking insane. Every single time you want to go into or out of Ice Belt. It's just like, oh my gosh, bro, that's just ridiculous. The story was great. I know a lot of people complain. Once again, it's just like I'm the opposite of reviewers, I feel like. People were saying like Sylux is barely getting featured. He was a waste and that the story wasn't that interesting. Now, they could have had more unique individual stories for the different areas from different races or something. That's what we used to get. Like, I know Prime 3, each planet had its own like little lore, and you know, this happened with other Prime games as well. You got log from the space pirates and stuff. This time it's all about the Lemorn, just about the Lemorn, which is fine. I liked the story with them. It was pretty cool, and the plot twist of them being the Grievers was cool. How it was like, you know, their whole race being zombified. Really cool take. I like that actually a lot, and it's something we haven't seen yet. I liked uncovering the story. It was actually giving me story for once, where past Prime games don't do that. You get very small pieces of story. And most of the story comes from scanning things, especially with Prime 1. Like, you're going to have to scan. Like, Prime 1 and 2 is mostly like you got to scan everything to learn the story. You get a very brief overview at the very beginning from the Chozo or from the Luminoth about what you're supposed to do and who the villain is, and then that's it. You know what I mean? The Luminoth is like, hey, there's this dark world. There's this Ing people. You got to kill them. That's the story. And you got to learn everything else on your own. This time it actually, you know, it gives you stuff that you can learn on your own, but also it gives you some cutscenes and story details as you play, which is great. Something that I really wish the first 3 games did. But I like the story. I felt like Sylux was not underutilized, especially when you realize, you know, they were saying how underutilized he was and how he didn't really serve a purpose. But I'm like, did they not play to the ending and see why? There's a reason. You know, he was hurt and he was in a healing tank the whole time, controlling everything from the background. That's why you saw 2 clones of Sylux, and that's why all these robots are attacking Samus. Like, it ties into the story, and then it even gives you some background as to who Sylux is, eventually giving you a cutscene if you complete the game fully, that shows you who Sylux was and how he was this, you know, general for the Galactic Federation and stuff. And I really liked that. He just had like this ego, and, you know, he led his squadron into a battle where they all died except for him. He despises the Federation. He despises Samus. He wants to be the hero. He wants all the glory. And I like that story for him. I like the voice acting for him. I felt like he was done well, and I feel like it almost sets up for like a future game with him. So I like that. I really do. But yeah, I felt the story was great. That's really about it, man. The scans and stuff, I didn't miss anything. I didn't notice anything that was really missable, probably outside of the first area with the space pirates that you could probably miss. But besides that, I think everything else you can get again. Besides, I know there's also a couple of bosses that have multiple scans. So I believe, I don't even know if the bosses are missable, because there's a room where you can actually get holograms of the bosses. So I wonder if they're missable at all. That I don't know, but maybe you guys can inform me on that. But, you know, I think they handled the missable items well. Oh, the end of the game collectathon. So each game has an end of the game collectathon thing, where the first game you had to go back and find artifacts. The second game you had to go back and find keys. And the third game you had to go back and find energy cylinders or something like that, like energy tanks. Fuel cells or something it was, energy cells, I don't know. I felt like the first 2 games were very annoying, especially Prime 2. The fact that they could even hide them from plain sight with the X-ray thermal visor thing, that was so annoying. This was handled the best out of all the games so far. It was something that you would find along your way, which was all the parts of this robot, and then when you went back to find them all, I mean, you could find them all in like 30 minutes. It really was not a big issue. And the ones that weren't, most of them were in the desert in very noticeable areas that are marked on your map once you find them. So you'll find like 4 of the 6 of them through your playthrough. But the other 2 are located in past worlds that are very clear. It's sections of those worlds that you did not explore yet. You can see the map is empty in those areas. And I like how some of them actually added some extra stuff to the game. Like, one of them actually added like a boss battle in Flare Pool, which was not even in the game, which was pretty cool. Like some random big enemy encounter, which felt like a boss. I wish there was more of that. Just more like little mini bosses, overworld bosses that you would find and come up on. Instead of it just being like 4 or 5 cinematic bosses. So more of those little bosses and stuff. Like, that's something I really loved about Metroid Prime 2 is like every power up was tied behind a boss battle. There's so many really good boss battles in that game. But yeah, I want to say that's it. This is the best suits that Samus has ever had. I freaking love them to death. They are beautiful. They are beautiful. I really love the light suit from Metroid Prime 2, but this new white one, this psychic white suit is just pure beauty, bro. It is perfect. I don't think they're ever going to get better than that one. Like, I maybe another all black one like the Phazon suit from the first game. I don't know if they're ever going to get close. Like, this white one, the red and purple, and then the white and purple, dude, it's just beautiful. Like, gosh, they're so pretty. Yeah, though, that's about it. I wish there was more enemy types. It does feel like it's just the same robots and the same grievers. The grievers don't even really put up a threat. I mean, every single breed and type of them are very easy to take out. The robots were probably the most difficult. The little robot drones, the Cybots, I think they're called. But let's talk about the ending of the game, and I think we can pretty much wrap it up. Okay. My throat's hurting from talking so much. I don't know why. So, the end of the game. I felt at the end of the game, once again, I've heard reviewers not like it. I was very much a fan of it. I liked Samus gathering up her crew on this like final storm, the capital type of thing, and you go up all these really pretty cinematic elevator sections, and you get to the top of the spire, and it's this really pretty outlook over the world. The clouds are forming, and you got to go up into the elevator, and that whole scene of riding up into the master teleporter at the top was really cool. Finding Sylux was in the healing tank the whole time, and the final battle was pretty cool. There was like 3 different phases, but the first phase was the freaking worst. It made me want to just die. Oh my gosh, they decide to allow all your teammates and all the troopers to fight alongside you at once. And that means they can go down, so you'll be fighting Sylux and having to res teammates like you're playing Fortnite, dude. It was like, what is going on? It was the dumbest idea. It was my only moment where I did not like them. But thankfully, Phase 2, Sylux takes you away into this really cool tunnel section, and then Phase 3, you're fighting them just all alone again by yourself in space. Really cool cinematic background. Made it feel like a Final Fantasy or a Xenoblade boss. Really cool. And then you come back, Sylux comes back, and like you have to sacrifice, the crew pretty much to get home. A lot of people may not like this. I thought it was really cool. It actually finally gave these characters payoff because, you go through this whole thing in the fourth world where it looks like each and every single one of them are dying in this dramatic way trying to save Samus, but they're all alive still. Just like, what was the point? Like, what was the point of all that? So I'm glad that they did what seemingly looked like killed him off at the very end. It was sad. It hit home, it hit hard, and I like that type of story. I like something that ends with kind of like a gritty, like a sad thing, like because none of the Metroid Prime games really do that. Prime 1 ends with you kind of, saving everything for the Chozo and defeating Ridley and defeating the Metroid Prime, and Prime 2 ends with you defeating the Ing and closing all the portals to the Dark World. You did it. You've saved the Luminoth people. And Prime 3 is about, you stopping corruption, finally defeating Dark Samus, and you save the galaxy. So this game is just like, you may have preserved the Lemorn in their history, but you lost so many Galactic Federation soldiers. You lost so many friends. Sylux could still be alive. We don't know if he's alive or not. It's just that there's a lot of just sadness and shrouded in mystery moments. And I really like the end of the game. I think Samus's actual face looks great. They show it off at the end of the game again, and I feel like this is just the peak version, the peak look for Samus. Yeah, but I love how there's a gallery again that you can look at and all this like concept art. Really, really cool stuff. But overall, yeah, I really just wish they added Viola also has skins for the motorcycle that you can only get from Amiibo. So I really, 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 really wish that they just allow that to be part of the game and not tied to Amiibo, like just a radio station that you can unlock as your, maybe every 10% you move up on items collected, or every 10% you move up on scans, completed scans, you get more tracks. That way it encourages you to 100% the game. But you don't get you don't get the bulk of the tracks. Sorry, I got hiccups. Ugh. You don't get the bulk of the tracks until you 100% the game, which is just like, what's the point? What am I going to listen to this music on? Like, I have to replay the game to listen to this music, I guess. I don't even feel like replaying the game. I don't feel like replaying this game at the moment. So, oh man, I've seen a lot of people make a lot of comments with this game online, and I think it comes down to, my verdict is, this feels like a good Metroid game, but a terrible Metroid Prime game. It does not feel like Metroid Prime. This feels like a Metroid Prime for people that didn't like the first three. And then you might ask yourself, like, okay, isn't that a good thing then? You're getting new people in. But I'm like, yeah, but you're alienating your fan base. I've seen so many diehard Prime fans so upset with this game. Myself, I was, as a Prime fan that thought this was going to be a Prime game, and just like the other Prime games, I was left pretty mixed with this game. I hate to fear that it's trying to please newcomers and try to be something that it never was, just to appeal to them. You know, I've even had some comments of people saying, like, nobody wants to get lost in worlds. Nobody wants to figure out where they need to go next. Nobody has time. And I agree to an extent. I mean, I felt that for sure with Metroid Prime 2. I was like, okay, I got too many other games and too much stuff to do than to be running around these worlds with like a chicken with their head cut off for hours trying to figure out where to go next. There's a level to it. Like, it should be difficult and puzzly and explorative and maze-like to an extent, but not to the point where you're just like spending so many hours trying to figure out this obscure location you're supposed to be at, you know? So, and the problem is, that shouldn't be an issue. If you do decide to go back to that path formula, just have, Miles was right there. If you need help, there's a help button. That's all they need to do, is have a button that tells you where you should go or lead you to where you need to go if you're somebody that gets lost easily. But if you don't have to use the button at all. But I think turning the franchise into what it feels like is, it turned more into it's just straight up an action adventure game now. It's an action adventure game, which it used to be kind of like a puzzle, exploration, adventure, action. It had a little bit of everything. Prime was so unique, but it really had more of an emphasis on puzzle exploration than adventuring. You know what I mean? This just feels like a pure adventure. You're in it for an adventure. You're going on a journey, and that's pretty much it. Very little puzzles, very little exploring. Just you're going on a journey, going through a story. I've seen some people compare this to Skyward Sword. I wouldn't even say that. I think that even that's a stretch. But I get what they're saying with like the world design and the layout and stuff. I get that, but no. I've also seen people compare this to typical 3D Legend of Zelda dungeon design and stuff. I don't think that's the case either. If you like 3D Zelda dungeons, you're probably not going to like this. This doesn't feel like that. I wouldn't recommend somebody, because this isn't like a thing where halfway through the dungeon you're fighting a mini boss and then you get an item and then you use that same item to get through the rest of the dungeon in unique ways. That doesn't happen here. You'll go through some areas without getting a single new power-up. Or you'll get a power-up that's meant to be used, you know, in another world or something. Like it doesn't quite feel like, you know, and once again, in Zelda, you'd use that item on the boss. You don't do that here, really, ever. So, no, I wouldn't say this was like a Zelda game. This is like its own thing. If anything, like the best I could compare it to was Uncharted. It feels like an Uncharted game. If you ever play the Uncharted series, where there's segments of cutscenes and story and dialogue, you're constantly, you know, with somebody. There's some worlds you're always with somebody, doing stuff with them. There's isolation moments, but there's also a lot of moments that you are with, like Flare Pool. I feel like you spend a majority of the time with people, with two people. But it just feels like you're going from one area to the next, doing, you know, simplified task, doing a context-sensitive thing, hitting a button, scanning a terminal, doing something really simple for the cast to continue on the story with you, telling a character on your team to go hit something, you know, just very just silly things, rezzing teammates, working with them, opening doors with your teammates. It just feels like you're walking through this pretty average adventure game. That's just kind of how I felt. I think a 7 out of 10 is good. I'd say if the ending wasn't as good as I thought it would, like I thought the ending was going to be a lot worse, and I was gearing up to end up giving the game like a 6. But the ending alone and the story tied to it, I think saved it for me and gave it a 7. But I can definitely see why people, like if you hate the desert, I know you're going to hate the level design. There's not much there for you. So I can see why some people are. I'm actually still surprised that it even got to an 80 on Metacritic. I'm surprised it wasn't like a mid-70s. So I'm torn on the game. I want to replay it with the mindset of this is not a Prime game, and maybe that'll make me like it more. But I don't know. For you Prime fans out there, what did you think? And for you non-Prime fans, what did you think? I like to hear it from both sides because this is, it's a different thing coming from two different people. So who knows? Maybe Prime fans love it, or maybe Prime fans hate it. Maybe you're both. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't even look at how long I've been talking here. Just been speaking. Almost an hour episode this time. That's good. I like getting it longer for you guys just to sit and relax and watch gameplay or listen. But yeah, this was one that I was fearing. I think the early sales have already come out for the UK and for Japan, and they're very low. Which is just heart-wrenching. Of course, Japan has always been low with Metroid Prime, so until the US sales come out, we're not going to really know. And it's probably going to still be a while until we really see like global sales and how well it's actually doing. But at least for some of the other territories out there, it's not looking too hot at all. It's like lower than what the Dread sales were initially and stuff, so I don't know, man. That series could be in jeopardy again. Who knows? Yeah. But let me know what you think down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And, yeah, I will see you all on the next one. And have a blessed day, guys. See ya.